Welcome back. You're watching India Tonight with me, Jude Sanath, even as my colleague Shibani Garat joins in from our Mumbai studios. Now, a news that's been dominating most of our social media feed for the day. Jewelry brand Giva has withdrawn its ad for Raksha Bandhan after its brand ambassador Kriti Sanon faced a whole lot of backlash for her styling in the commercial. The brand in question was forced to apologize after days of controversy. The actor too had slammed those who questioned her choice of clothing. You know, Shibani, I can't believe it's 2026 and we're still debating what a woman ought to wear and what she ought not to, even
Absolutely.
as social media audiences and keyboard warriors seem to be in a position to dictate these terms.
Absolutely, Jude. Absolutely, Jude. And, the actress, in fact, has posted on her own social media feed about this entire backlash and, what is her response to it. But this is not the first time, in fact, that brands have succumbed to the keyboard warriors and made to rethink its campaign strategy. From Tanish to Manyavar, we have seen moral policing in advertising space. But can brands be dictated terms in this day and age? We discuss this with our esteemed guest tonight. We are joined in by Harish Bijoor. He is a brand guru. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now, Harish. Now, when a brand pulls down a controversial ad within 24 hours of putting it up on, on the kind of money that goes behind making an ad, it's out everywhere on the broadcast channels, on social media, on digital. Do you think it's deemed as a responsible crisis management after backlash or succumbing to, the pressure from the trolls on social media platforms? How do you look at this?
Shibani, actually, we live in a constraints-led marketing economy. By that, I mean to say that, when a brand actually goes out on a limb and does something which it believes is right, and if there is mass protest, or if there is even a big voice talking about it negatively, brands feel compelled to withdraw. So the path of least resistance is what brands know how to take. And I think Giva has done exactly that. It has taken the path of least resistance. It has said, yes, I've spent so much of money. Yes, I have gone and advertised in a manner which I thought was right. But the masses don't seem to be accepting it. It could be the masses, or it could be very influential people representing the ostensible mass sentiment. Brands take the path of least resistance.
But, Harish, I'm not even going to get into the central issue in terms of why, a woman's respect for Indian culture is still being measured by what she wears or by how deep her neckline is. But surely you might want to agree that given that Kriti actually defended the campaign, but Giva then going about withdrawing it, do you think that the brand effectively abandoned its brand ambassador when she perhaps needed its support the most?
Oh, yes. Certainly, Giva has let down the brand ambassador because the brand ambassador has come out and the brand ambassador has said, in very, very clear terms, that I wear what I wear. And I think, that is something which we have to take note of because at the end of the day, a star in a bralette on television, what's wrong with it? Seems to be the sentiment which is around because a woman must have the right to wear what she believes is okay to be worn. And it's not obscenity for sure. So I think, at the end of the day, the brand has buckled. And at the end of the day, the person who holds the decision on this is the brand. It's not the endorser. It's not the advertising agency. It's not anybody else.
Help us understand now where is the creative freedom, because of course there are these creatives sitting within the agencies trying to do something different. Already the consumer attention spans have gone down, but backlashes like these, are they pulling some of these creative professionals back into the echo chambers, trying to play it safe so that, their ad is within those limitations and, does not become a part of a larger controversy going forward?
Shibani, incidents such as this actually make brands get into a shell and try to be more and more careful. There are brands which do a social audit, an economic audit, a political audit, and a religious audit when it comes to looking at a piece of advertising. Now, all these audits, of course, hurt creativity. Of course, don't let brands go out on a limb, or of course, don't let brands do woke, because woke is not acceptable, and woke at times, is criticized in a big way, and therefore, I think brands take the patli gully of being careful all the time. Yes, brands get pushed there. I just want to make another comment out here, Shabani, which is to say that listen, what really happens is there's something called mass media and there's something called niche media. Now, mass media is actually watched by people of all ages, people of all cultures, people of all socioeconomic groups. Whereas niche media is very specific to the kind of people who watch it. So niche media is digital to that extent. Digital is very young. And to an extent, you could do this kind of advertising without too much of noise on Instagram. But when it comes to mass media, there are a lot of people who are looking at it, and a lot of people will comment on it. And therefore, it's a choice issue. Do you want to be on the mass media or niche media?
Right. But Harish, I hear you when you say that brands want to follow the path of least resistance and go about perhaps adhering to what mass sentiments or mass outpouring of emotion, is before actually going about taking a call. But I have to understand this. How does a brand actually determine as to whether the online outrage, the so-called outrage, actually represents a vast portion of their audience or their customers, or merely a small but extremely loud group of social media accounts, many of whom are in fact also anonymous? And secondly, by going about pulling down that ad, did Giva or any brand for that matter in question that does this go about teaching online mobs that just the right amount of noise could be a very effective way of going about exercising creative control?
Jude, that's a very pertinent question, and I think it's framed well. Please appreciate that, when it comes to people resisting something or people complaining about something, even a small group of people is enough to create problems for your brand. Please understand these brands go through the retail format. Please understand that these brands have retail stores. Nobody wants action at their retail stores. Nobody wants protest at these retail stores. I think Titan and Tanishq have actually gone through this kind of a thing, particularly Tanishq has gone through it, where store level action was threatened at a point of time. Now, what does a big brand like Tanishq do? The big brand decides that the safety and the security of my people who work within the stores is more important to me than anything else. And I think, that is what makes brands withdraw. Now, to the second part of your question, Jude, yes, you're absolutely right. This gives people an idea that if there is a little bit of protest, brands will back out. And I think that's exactly what happens. Important for brands to assess where the protest is coming from, how relevant it is, what is the audience size that is protesting, is it a protest of a vested party, etc., etc. But most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, why 9 out of 10 times, Jude? 10 out of 10 times, brands buckle because brands are worried about their reputation, their image, and of course, the safety of their entire establishment.
Harish, also help us understand there's a larger trend over here that we see, which is, somehow the festive campaigns are the ones which are the most controversial. And festive time is also a very high volume time for many of these FMCG brands, jewelry brands, retail brands. So, for example, the Dabur's Fem's Karwa Chauth campaign that, had a LGBTQ plus couple that was showcased around that. Jashne Rivaz, faced a backlash, a campaign by Fab India a couple of years ago. And again, this one, the campaign for Giva is around a festival, which is Rakhi. So how do, these brands navigate this entire festive season with so much of clutter already, when festival and anything around the festival and the storytelling around it, anything clutter breaking around the festival becomes a point of contention?
Yes. With companies who I consult with, I typically tell them that it's extremely important for you to assess what cultural mood or what festive mood you're advertising within. Now, when you're advertising, please be careful. I mean, most companies tend to jump in and have a FOMO, the fear of missing out on a festival. I tell people, if you can't advertise in a differentiated manner, in a differential manner, and if you cannot get away with your storyline, please stay out. Don't advertise. There is a joy of missing out. I call it a JOMO. Sometimes, it's good not to join the clutter, because in a cultural situation where there's sensitivity, why get into the trouble of those sensitive times? You are essentially a brand. I think you have to be careful about sticking to your brand ethos, maintaining peace within your brand ecosystem.
Right. Harish, out of pure curiosity, is there a commercial calculation also at play? For instance, does withdrawing an advertisement actually go about protecting a brand, or could you possibly, do that and end up looking weak and opportunistic? Is there a calculation that went in?
Yeah.
Aside from safety, aside from the path of least resistance that you mentioned, is there a calculation at play as well?
Okay. Of course there is, Jude, because, you weigh the two things. You tend to say that there's a social blast against me. Not too many people, but a few people, but that's enough to get traction over a period of time. And social media can be cruel. And, trolls can be very cruel to your brand. Do I want the negativity to touch me, or do I just get out? So the cost of getting out, the cost of a controversy is always assessed by a brand. And this is done very quickly. And typically, a good CEO would take a good decision for the brand.
Right. And Harish, philosophically, let's move away from brands for just a bit, but allow me, if you will, what message do you think this entire discourse, first the trolling, then the withdrawal despite, the brand ambassador taking a diametrically opposite stance, what message do you think this sends to the young women in our country? That they're free to celebrate a traditional festival, free to celebrate Indian customs and traditions, but only in attire that is deemed to be largely approved by the masses? What do you think the message is here overall?
The message actually divides the country into two bits. And it says that there are the young on one side and the older ones on another side. So it looks like it that the older ones are getting away with the messaging they want to convey. And the older ones are saying that, hey, listen, this is mass media. I don't want to watch these kind of visuals. The younger ones are a quiet audience, really. They aren't as noisy as the older ones are. And I think the young get the brunt of it in terms of saying that, maybe this is not on. I think, marketers, decision makers, big people who comment on this kind of advertising need to just get out onto the ground and witness reality on the ground. If your advertising matches reality, then there's nothing wrong with it. But if advertising does not match reality, and is saying things which are completely off the cuff, off the head kind of a thing, then of course protest. So I think important to smell the coffee that the young are smelling.
To smell the coffee that the young are smelling. Thank you so much, Mr. Bijoor, for joining us today on India Tonight. Well, on that note, it is time for us to slip into a very short break. You don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.